Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am DK Bhattacharya and I am going to talk about Lower Paleolithic culture of India. Before I start talking about Lower Paleolithic culture of India, I must inform you that from as early as 1700, Lower Paleolithic tools have been found here and there by many people. Of course, Robert Bruce Foote was the last one who started finding tools from all over India. But these made no sense except for the fact that they represented the fact that man was present in Lower Paleolithic period in India. So what we have been missing all this time when the tools have been found from all over India is a perfect chronology of Pleistocene period. Once you find a chronology of Pleistocene period, then you can attest the finds, the antiquities along the Pleistocene succession and talk of a general succession of cultural types. 1939, Dittera and Patterson were specially invited by Archaeological Survey of India to give India a Pleistocene chronology. Now, the Dittera and Patterson came, surveyed all over India, and chose the Potwar region. The reason for choosing the Potwar region was twofold. Number one, it was entirely lacustrine depositional bed. And we know that Olduvai Gorge in Africa was also a lacustrine depositional peneplain. So they felt that this will be easy for us to work the chronology for, number one. Number two, this peneplain has already been worked by persons like Pilgrim, Crine, Lydekker, the one who discovered Ramapithecus while working in this region. So they had identified about 6 layers of the Pliocene, Pleistocene beds and called them as Sivalik succession. You have names like Muri, Kamlial, Chinji, Nagri, Tatrot, Pinjor, Dhokpathan and so on. Ditter and Patterson came to this area near Rawalpindi and they saw that this peneplain, which was nothing but lacustrine, layers of lacustrine deposit, mostly of tertiary period, it was cut by a river, and the river was called Sohan by them. The local people call it Soa, and some people call it Sohan. So this river that cuts the lacustrine beds, it cut it in several terraces, 4 terraces. The first one was called T datum, so TD, and then T1, T2, and T3, and T4. So 4 terraces were found. It was argued that these 4 terraces represent the aggradational and the erosional phase of the river, which cuts through the tertiary beds. But they couldn't be attested with the succession of Pleistocene. So they went to Srinagar, and along Dal, they found that there is a village called Malshahi Bagh, where they found a huge amount of deposit, which was identified by the local people in Kashmiri term as Karewa 1. Now, the Karewa was analyzed in the sedimentological lab and was found to be nothing but loess, and loess deposit happens only when there is a glaciation. So it is an aeolian deposit that comes during glaciation. So Karewa 1 was taken as having been formed during first Himalayan glaciation, because it is also found with a fossil of Villafranchian type, which is called Elephas hisudricus. Elephas hisudricus skull was found in Malshahi Bagh. They came back to Rawalpindi and they found in the deposit, the lacustrine deposit of the peneplain of Potwar, the deposit called Tatrot, they found the same fossil of Elephas hisudricus. So immediately they said that Tatrot therefore represents the time when the first Himalayan glaciation was taking place. So Pinjor, which is the next deposit, was taken as the first interglacial, Himalayan interglacial. And then over this Tatrot and Pinjor, which marks the end of the lacustrine deposits, the river brings its first boulders. Huge big boulders came, and these boulders were obviously referred to as second Himalayan glaciation. So Tatrot was linked with Malshahi Bagh. Malshahi Bagh was having a Villafranchian fauna, and therefore Tatrot was taken as belonging to first Himalayan glaciation. Pinjor was taken to first Himalayan interglaciation. Boulder conglomerate, which occurs just over Pinjor, was taken as belonging to second Himalayan glaciation, or Mindel in alpine terminology. Then, of course, this is TD, and then T1 was taken as second Himalayan interglaciation, T2 as third Himalayan glaciation, T3 as the third Himalayan glaciation, and fourth T4 as the fourth Himalayan glaciation. So a kind of a composite chart was made to show that Tatrot and Pinjot together represents lower Pleistocene. TD, T1 and T2 refers to middle Pleistocene. T3 and T4 refers to upper Pleistocene. So the kind of Pleistocene chronology that we are dying to have for us was now established by Dieter and Peterson. It was published in 1944. This is around the time when Sankalia somehow was not happy with it, and Zoyner, Frederick Albert Zoyner, was from London School of Archaeology. He had to come. He came to India. He said, "I would like to survey some other rivers," and he surveyed the 4 rivers in the Gujarat region: Sabarmati, Mahi, Tapti, and a part of Narmada. And after extensively surveying the river, he said, "We don't have 4 deposits. We have only 2 deposits. So Indian rivers maintain only 2 gravels. And if they maintain 2 gravels, then you do not have the second glaciation." TD was taken as second glaciation. And if you have 2 gravels, then the first gravel is taken to belong to third glaciation, and the second gravel is a fourth glaciation, or pluviation, the way you like it. Dieter and Peterson, however, didn't stop here. They went to Narmada. They knew that all rivers in India cannot be linked with glacial fluctuations. So they went to Narmada, at a place between Hoshangabad and Narsinghpur. And there they identified varieties of layers, and they named them as boulder conglomerate, the cemented gravels, and then sandy gravel. So 3 gravels were identified belonging to 3 pluvials. And the earliest pluvial, which is represented by Tatrot in Potwar, here in Narmada they say the earliest pluvial is represented in terms of no river, because river was not born. It is represented in terms of decomposition of the basic rock, and it was created what is called primary laterite. So primary laterite in Hoshangabad is taken to represent first pluviation. Then there is a dirty small deposit of clay, which is called mottled clay, and this is called first interpluviation. Then you have gravel 1, which is boulder conglomerate, which will be taken as second pluviation. Then you have a kind of a silt, which is little light color, yellow color silt, which will be the second interglaciation. Then you have a third gravel, which they call as sandy gravel. And then, of course, they have this brownish silt. So you have 2 silts and 3 gravels. That was the kind of chronology that was given from the Narmada region, and they mixed it or superimposed it with the glaciation theory that was given for the Potwar region on the basis of the Himalayan glacial fluctuations. And then Sankalia said, "No, there are no 3 glaciations. We have only 2 glaciations." And then a man called Gregory Poschel in 1972, he wrote the appendix to a volume of Walter Fairservice's book, where he said all these glaciations and pluviations identified by India are wrong. He said they're wrong because even a monsoon can give you a boulder growth. It should be always attested with a marker fossil, and no Indian scholar has taken the responsibility of attesting the gravels with the marker fossils. So he said, now this is interesting, he said, Gregory Poschel, 1972, he said that Indian gravels all belong to upper Pleistocene. So they may be fluctuations of heavy rainfall and they have created gravels, but they are all upper Pleistocene. I can show you one of the gravel deposits that comes from Narmada. This has been picked up by us from Narmada, and you can see it's a second gravel deposit. And you have a tool trapped in it, and there are fossils also found trapped in it. We have removed the fossils. We have kept the tool for demonstration in the classroom. So you see the second gravel is a calcified deposit of conglomerate, which is called cemented pebble gravel, cemented pebble. The one which is the third gravel identified by Dieter and Peterson is not cemented gravel, it is called sandy gravel. Having established the Pleistocene chronology, now that we have accepted that there are only 2 gravels, and we kind of cancel the original theory of 3 gravels claimed by Dieter and Peterson, we go for a survey of the sites. We'll first take a survey of the areas south of Rajasthan, but before that, we'll go across to Pakistan. The British Archaeological Survey had come to to Pakistan in 2002, and Denel had identified in the extension of the Sivalik ranges in Pakistan 2 sites. One is called Riwat, R-I-W-A-T, and the other is called Pabi Hills. Riwat and Pabi Hills, both the sites, they have very beautiful date of some chopper tools, a chopper and a chopping tool. Both of them are found in gravel, and the gravels have been dated to 2.2 million years. Now here is a mode 1 chopper chopping tool which is lying right across the gate of entering India in Pakistan, and therefore we have to accept that the tool making man had already come to the doorstep of India. 2.2 million year is not erectus, it is pre-erectus. So if it is pre-erectus, we can say it is a collateral of Homo habilis. We don't know. It can be either Homo habilis or collateral of Homo habilis, but we have no skeleton so far. So here is evidence which shows that man must have entered India as early as 2.2 million years, which is same as in Africa in Old Gorge. Having said as much, we come to Rajasthan, and there is a site we know is called Didwana. Didwana is a very good site where the sand dunes have been consolidated over time, and a huge amount of gravel has been found. Sometimes 3 feet wide boulder conglomerate has been found going for several kilometers. So you know there were very active rivers here, and these active rivers has brought large amount of tools, and these are all lower Paleolithic tools which are dated to 390,000 years, almost Middle Pleistocene date. So you have a Middle Pleistocene date occurrence of large number of very good lower Paleolithic sites in Rajasthan. We have other sites also in Rajasthan, but they don't have a date, so we take Didwana as a classic site. We cross over into Haryana, Punjab, UP has no lower Paleolithic sites. Haryana, Punjab, UP has no lower Paleolithic site, except in UP there are some lower Paleolithic tools reported from Vrindavan, where the hills and the extension of the Aravallis have reported some tools. Delhi also has some lower Paleolithic tools, but all these tools are later Shulian in kind. We go straight to the east to Orissa in Mayurbhanj district. 1947, India has just become independent, and that's the time Dharani Sen and Nirmal Kumar Bose excavated one site called Kuliana in Mayurbhanj district. Excellent site, even it has stones in which there are fossilized impression of leaf. Most of the evidences have been lost because we don't know where they're kept. Somebody claims that there were also human fossil found, but we don't know where they're kept. Let us come to the stones. There is no date for that, but the gravels in which the tools are found are excellent later Shulian types with a pebble butt. The pebble has not been worked or totally up to the butt end, but the frontal end is very beautifully made hand axes and cleavers and large number of flake tools. So Kuliana Kamarpara kind of marks the easternmost extension of lower Paleolithic expansion in India. We come to the southern limits. They're all river valley surveys. Orissa has many other rivers, Baitarini, Burhabalang, Mahanadi. They have been all surveyed by Professor G.C. Mahapatra, and he has found large number of lower Paleolithic tools of various kinds, chopper chopping tools and hand axes and cleavers. We go down further to Andhra. Andhra is the richest part of lower Paleolithic evidence in India. We have the entire Giddalur depositions, and then of course you have all along in the coastal region as also inside Andhra, huge amount of chopper chopping tools, hand axes and cleavers. We go further down, but then the moment you cross Andhra and come to the northern Tamil Nadu, you have a site, very famous site called Athirampakkam, which was also excavated at a time when India was just becoming independent. V.D. Krishna Swami discovered it in 1947. Now, of course, recently Shanti Papu has been working on it, which became famous. Even scholars in the West are referring to it today because it has a date which is 1.5 million years. So 1.5 million years again puts it very close to African development of Homo erectus of 1.8 million years. So, but the moment you cross Athirampakkam and go further down, there are no hand axes. You go further down and enter Sri Lanka, no hand axes. So apparently Chennai, or the top or the northernmost part of Tamil Nadu, is the last of the hand axes and cleavers. No chopper chopping tool, no other hand axe and cleaver known until you cross into Sri Lanka. Also, there is no hand axes and cleaver. Let us go to the west and cross over into Kerala. Kerala has no lower Paleolithic sites, and only Mesolithic sites are there, but there is no lower Paleolithic site. We cross into Karnataka. Karnataka has many lower Paleolithic sites, or we'll talk about only one. This is the Hunski cluster. Of course, Isampur is one of them, which has given a date of 1.2 million years. But Hunski is a cluster which is also taken as a primary site because of varieties of reasons. But then this is also very late Acheulean tools. We cross over into Rajasthan, into Maharashtra. In Maharashtra also there are a large number of lower Paleolithic sites, of which we'll talk about only one, which is called Chirki on Pravara or Chirki Nivasa. Chirki Nivasa is a site which was excavated by Gudrun Corvinus, and this was also a very rich lower Paleolithic site. The distinction of Chirki and that of Isampur is this. Isampur is the only site in India where the lower Paleolithic tools are made on limestone. And Chirki is the only site in India where the lower Paleolithic tools are made on basalt. So these are two sites where the raw material is 100% changed to something very, very, very different from quartzite. Quartzite is a very suitable raw material, but neither basalt nor limestone is very suitable. But anyway, these are the two raw material change sites of the western region. Please remember that also in Middle Paleolithic, we have talked about a total shift of raw material in the western zone, and the western zone is showing the same behavior in lower Paleolithic as well. So after you cross this part of Maharashtra, you can enter central India. Western India we have already talked about in Didwana and Singhitala. In central India, we have two primary sites. One is called Adamgarh, the other is called Bhimbetka. And both these sites show a very rich development of late Acheulean culture with almost 3 times more cleavers than hand axes and beautiful flake tools accompanying with them. And it's a kind of quasi-metamorphosed sandstone. It's very soft stone, and it's called orthoquartzite. The raw material is very beautiful and soft, and this is the material used to show a huge colonization of lower Paleolithic, late Acheulean kinds in this region. Let us look at the western zone that we started with, the Rivat and Pabi hills in the west, and then of course our Sohan culture. It's a problem area. I'll tell you how. Number one, the Sohan succession has been recently found to be wrong by Dennell. Dennell and Drummond, there are two persons, they have looked at the entire material and they have said, no, there is no erosion and aggradation as a process which created the terraces. The terraces have been created by differential tectonic movement, that is earthquake. And therefore, all the layers of TD, T1, T2, T3, T4 are belonging to the same period, which is Upper Pleistocene in date. So we'll not talk at this succession. Because it has been found wrong from Dita's time, we'll not talk of succession. All right, but the material is the correct material. Nobody has brought fake material here. The material is chopper chopping tools. So here is a late Pleistocene or Upper Pleistocene site rich in chopper chopping tools with lot of flakes. Who are these? Now you cross into Tajikistan. A man called Ranov had discovered and excavated sites where you have the same kind of tools, and he has called them as early Sohan and late Sohan. You have Drummond and Patterson, and you have Dennell in Pabi Hills, who is finding chopper chopping tools. Chopper chopping there, chopper chopping here, chopper chopping there. It seems to be an area of chopper chopping complex. Let us look at G.C. Mahapatra. G.C. Mahapatra in Shimla Hills has found huge hand axes and cleavers. Even Ditera Patterson found hand axes and cleaver a little away from Potwar in a place called, it's a little different area, but there also they have found hand axes and cleavers, and they have not talked about it anywhere. Then there's a man called Ford who was doing physical anthropological work on the western bank of Indus in Pakistan, and there also they found huge amount of hand axes and cleavers. So you seem to be dealing in Potwar, you seem to be dealing with two varieties of cultural tradition, one from Central Asia, the other from Western Asia. The Western Asian part is hand axe and cleaver. The Central Asian part is chopper chopping. You have to accept the duality of two traditions that is entering India around Lower Pleistocene time. We have taken a rapid survey of all the sites, both excavated and unexcavated, all over India. And having done so, we had to face two questions. All over Europe and Africa, we have a chopper chopping complex as a unit tradition called Mode 1 tradition, and a hand axe cleaver context which is called Mode 2 or an Acheulean tradition. Do we have Acheulean tradition and chopper chopping, which is old one tradition, occurring one before the other? That means, is there a vertical evolution demonstrable? That means the archaic form is chopper chopping, it evolves indigenously into hand axe and cleaver. There is a scenario which is parallel to East Africa, Old White Gorge. So we are looking for internal evolution, if any, number one. Number two, if there is no internal evolution, then how do we accommodate chopper chopping? Does it occur as an integral part of our Acheulean? Now this is two possibilities. So we said we cannot talk about these two possibilities, one before the other or one contained within the other, until and unless we have primary sites. So we had no primary sites. We are always dealing with the first gravel deposit of the rivers, beginning from Kuliana and Kamarpara. So we said we must have primary sites. So the first primary sites came around 1966, which was Bhimbetka in Raisen district of Madhya Pradesh. A very big cluster of 600 caves, some of them always full of rock painting and so on. 3F23 is a specific rock shelter which was excavated by Deccan College. And we saw the rock shelter excavation, and the earliest of the deposit is late Acheulean. So if the late Acheulean is the earliest of deposit, you can't demonstrate whether chopper chopping precedes it or not. Is there an ancestral form which is chopper chopping in India? Obviously, we couldn't talk about chopper chopping being a part or being preceding the hand axe and cleaver culture. But only 20 kilometers from here, from Narmada, secondary deposits of Narmada, we have found huge amount of hand axes along with chopper chopping tools. So it was difficult to demonstrate whether they are two succeeding traditions or they contain one in the other. We cross the river and go to Adamgarh. Adamgarh is also a primary site. Adamgarh also has excavations which yield huge amount of chopper chopping and hand axe cleaver along with the same material in the same stratigraphic context. So here is 30% of chopper chopping along with hand axes and cleaver occurring in the same context. So you have to accept, at least from Adamgarh, that chopper chopping is an integral cultural component of Indian Acheulean. There is no other go because it's a primary site. Let us look at the other primary sites. We go to Paisra in Bihar. We have no chopper chopping tools or very few chopper chopping tools. Mostly there are hand axes and cleavers. We go to Hunski. Hunski, you have 30% chopper chopping tools with hand axes and cleaver. We go to Tirkinivasa, we find almost 30% chopper chopping tools with hand axes and cleavers. So shall we say all over in primary sites also, chopper chopping is an integral part of hand axes and cleaver. So our Acheulean seems to be late in date, and this late Acheulean continues with a part of chopper chopping from inside. But this is difficult to accept because of Bhimbetka. Bhimbetka 3F23, hundreds and hundreds of tools have been excavated meticulously, not a single chopper came. So then people started saying, if there is no chopper in Bhimbetka, then it means that the rivers in which chopper occurs with hand axes and cleaver shows that the river has brought the older material together into gravel one, and the older material was not occupied in Bhimbetka rock shelter. So this is a scenario where we can possibly talk about an ancestral form leading into a later form. Now this is a psychological point or also a little ethnic politics. If you have an older form and an older form then succeeded by a new younger form, you can say origin of the culture was in India. And if you don't have the older form, namely a layer in which only chopper chopping occurs, you have to accept that chopper chopping is an integral part of Acheulean, and the Acheulean is late Acheulean. So what happens is that the sites where you have a date like in Atirampakkam, date like 1.5 million years, we would expect that there will be a layer of chopper chopping in that early date, but we don't find a chopper chopping layer at all. In this manner, we have to accept that Indian lower Paleolithic cultural evidences, wherever they come from, primary or secondary sites, seem to show no internal evolution. There is no possibility of demonstrating internal evolution. And that's very important. But you can talk about internal evolution from within Acheulean, which is very difficult to say because the oldest layer is a late Acheulean. So what kind of evolution can you show? In Bhimbetka, 3 times more cleavers, and cleavers are a later Acheulean type. So you have no possibility of showing internal evolution. Let us talk of the dispersal then. If there is no internal evolution, all right, late Acheulean occupation, but Atirampakkam has early Acheulean occupation, good enough. But what about internal variation or regional development? Is there a regional development? We take the survey all along India and come to the eastern belt again. This is the very big cyclonic belt from south of Orissa down to Machilipatnam in Andhra Pradesh. Now this coastal belt gets the highest amount of cyclone almost every year regularly. So it has a huge forested region, almost a rainforest region, and therefore the tool types I would expect will be different from the western region. Let us look at the tool types of the eastern belt. Now, the tool types of the eastern belt, what J.C. Mahapatra found from, Kuliana, Kamarpara, of course, with Nirmal Bose and J.C. Mahapatra's Mahanadi, Vaitarani, Burabalang side, they are very rich in pebble tools. There are so many pebble tools that even a beautiful hand axe has pebble cortex left in it. You are reminded of Tata in Central Europe, where you have beautiful cleavers and beautiful side scrapers with the entire dorsal surface full of pebble cortex. So the eastern belt shows huge amount of pebble-based industry. Shall we use the word pebble-based? Even if it's a hand axe, it's part of pebble-based can be seen. Even if it's a cleaver, a pebble-based can be seen. Now let us compare it with that of the rest of India. When you see it compared with rest of India, they are not pebble-based anywhere. In the western belt, there is no pebble-based industry. Of course, the flake tool remain the same as in middle Paleolithic. There are less level of flake in eastern belt. There are huge level of flake, level of point in western belt. So you have a regional difference demonstrable. And these two are the epicenters of change, and they kind of influence the central belt, Bhimbetka-Adamgarh belt. And Bhimbetka-Adamgarh belt is full of chopping tools. But the hand axes don't have a pebble cortex in them. Cleaver doesn't have a pebble cortex in them. So here is a in-between where you see the eastern influence and the western influence has permeated down to this beautiful area which is full of orthoquartzite, soft stone and sandstone, quasi-metamorphosed and soft stone and beautiful stone. So you don't have to keep the pebble cortex, you knock it off and make beautiful hand axes. Some of the hand axes from Bhimbetka are as many as 19 centimeters long. So they are beautiful, long, elongated hand axes and cleavers. So here is a separate kind of development because of the beautiful raw material. But if you look at Chirkinivasa, the raw material is so stupid. It is basalt. Basalt doesn't even fracture well. And yet there you find huge amount of chopping tools and hand axes and cleavers very well finished with cylinder hammer technique. So you have a late Acheulean everywhere, and early Acheulean is not demonstrable. Recently, the last 4 or 5 years, there is a gentleman called Partha Chauhan. He is from Chandigarh with Satish Patnaik. They have discovered a site called Durkhadi. The site was discovered by a man called Armand, but they have excavating this site. And there they have claimed an early Acheulean layer. An early Acheulean layer means a layer in which there will be all flakes of stone hammer technique. There is no cylinder hammer technique. Tools are massive, large and crude. And there are a couple of cleavers, though normally cleavers are not accepted in early Acheulean. We are frantically waiting for a skeleton of early Acheulean period. We still don't have the skeleton that we're getting from Hathnora is not really early Acheulean. We have all along late Acheulean tools in India. So this is a scenario which is a little difficult to explain. Here is a date which is 1.5, but here we find again middle to upper Acheulean tool types. So upper Acheulean seems to be the period of consolidation of lower Paleolithic culture of India. They consolidate, they spread all over. And there is a difference in the eastern belt and the western belt. Thank you very much.